and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Krentzman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, coming to you as always from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast, brought to you, of course, by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project. And with colder weather now here in the Northeast, probably here to stay at this rate, good time to check out their website, get your winter gear, in particular that hat that I promote all the week, because again, I promise you it is the greatest and most comfortable winter hat you'll ever wear. And remember to use promo code MYPB for 25% off. It is a great deal, and that hat will keep you warm. This is episode number 93 on the Spanish style Noventa y Trace. We thank you for tuning in and listening as always. You can send your questions to us at any time at mypbshow@gmail.com. Or you can also DM us at our Instagram page, coming across your screen if you're watching the video feed, at Mind Your Puckin' Business. And I do have a question or two that you guys sent in, which I'm going to answer actually in about a minute or two on the Rangers. You can watch us on a variety of different platforms, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and Facebook. Video feed is always available on YouTube, so you can watch us there.
Absolutely.
How do we do?
Oh, we're doing great.
We're doing great, yes.
Oh, yes.
So let's talk about the Rangers. We're going to have a guest in a couple minutes, a football guest, so we're going to get the hockey kind of in the out of the way here, because there's really not a tremendous amount to talk about. The Rangers played 4 times since we were on last Tuesday. They had a game on Tuesday night versus the Islanders at home, and we talked about the importance of that game. They didn't play well at the Island a couple weeks ago. The Rangers had a 2-goal lead going into the third period and found a way to lose 4-3, which is completely unacceptable. I mean, if you have a 2-goal lead at home, on home ice, you should never lose that game. And at worst, and this would still not be acceptable, you lose that game in overtime and get a point. The Rangers got nothing out of it. And the message that came out of that game to me was just, again, the inability of this team so far this year to play a complete 60-minute game, which is something that they have struggled with. They went on the road at Thursday in Detroit. Now, I was out with the kids and my wife all day, so I didn't see the game, but I did follow it enough to know that they were tied going into the third and won 8-2. They had a 6-goal explosion in the third period. So, you know what? You find, I don't care how you win, but they won, right? Which is good. Saturday in Nashville was excruciatingly painful game to watch. The Rangers played really well. They outshot Nashville, but couldn't score. The Rangers, if you're a fan of this team, as long as I've been, it is in the Rangers DNA or in their genetics every year since 1992, when I started really following them, that they make goalies that do not play well look good, right? Like, goalies can come in, be ice cold, losing 6 games in a row. And that's kind of what happened in Nashville. The goalie out there, Soros, has not been playing well, but on Saturday night versus the Rangers, he did. They had a 4-minute power play in the last 6 minutes of the third period with a chance to tie it on a double minor for high sticking, and could not get a decent shot on goal. The puck movement was great, but the inability to get the puck down low towards the net killed that power play, and therefore the Rangers went on to lose in Nashville. Sunday night, you come home, you play a terrible Arizona team, and they won, which is all that matters. But man, was there concern. You got outshot in the first period on home ice 17-3. That is that is hard to do, right?
Bad, yeah.
To get outshot 17-3 is awful. But they came back, and I see you over there smiling, by the way. They came back, found a way to win the game, and that's all that matters. So here's where we're at right now with the Rangers. The Rangers, I tried to think driving here to the studio this morning of an analogy, or like a thing that I can compare this to. This may be a really, really bad analogy, but here it goes.
Lay it on us.
You go on an airplane somewhere, right? The plane goes up in the air, it goes up, it stays at a constant altitude for, however long the flight is, and then it comes down. So it goes up and down. This Ranger team seems to be stuck in the autopilot mode right now, where they can't go on a run, and they're not getting blown out either.
Yeah.
But they're just cruising at an altitude, not really.
Airplane's the best, our analogy. How about roller coaster?
Yeah. Well, roller coaster would be a good thing, but the Rangers can't eventually this team,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
is either going to go on a streak where not of the Devils' magnitude, although I wish it was, where they're going to go on a streak and they're going to play good hockey, maybe 7 of 8 games or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, and again, we hope this doesn't happen, that'll be the flip side. They'll lose 4 or 5. They're just like they're almost in neutral right now. So there was a stat that came out the other night, which I thought was really interesting. One of the Rangers beat reporters posted this, and if you're looking for to side with either the glass is half full or the glass is half empty, this is for the glass is half full people.
Okay.
The Rangers have played 17 games.
All right.
They've had more shots than their opponents in 11 of 17 games, which you like, right?
Yeah.
But let's look at this. They've been outshot, right?
Mhm.
6 out of 17 games. What is their record in those 6 games? 3-1-2, right?
Mhm.
So basically what we're saying is the Rangers have a losing record in games where they have the shots advantage. It just doesn't really make any sense,
Mhm.
right? So I again, we're not pushing the panic button. We're certainly not, but you would like to see some form of consistency
Mhm.
with good play instead of this back and forth. You look good for one game, then you come out and you look good for 40 minutes the next game and then blow it in the third period. So it'll be interesting now. The Rangers go out west. They'll go play in Seattle tomorrow night. They'll spend Saturday night against their old coach, David Quinn, in San Jose, and then they will go down to Southern California twice. They'll go down there once to play 2 games, the LA Kings and the Anaheim Ducks. So the hope is that they can use this road trip and try and gain some traction and get on a roll, get some more consistent play. So
how are the lines shaping up?
The lines remain an issue. Kravtsov, we've been on him for being hurt. He had the flu on Saturday, so he didn't play in Nashville, which, look, when you have the flu, that's a legitimate excuse, right? I don't know that I want you in the lineup and then, infecting.
Yep.
Because they don't wear masks, players, right? You don't want them infecting your team. But then, the next night, you expect him to be back in the lineup, and he's out because of dental work, right? That was the only thing.
I thought hockey players don't have teeth.
Well, they don't have teeth.
Oh, okay.
But the other thing is hockey players can take a puck to a tooth, right? And then they'll get stitched up and be back out. But the guy hadn't played. I don't understand what dental work he had. So the lines remain an issue because, again, there's no consistency. This is all coming back to the lack of consistency in the lines, therefore translating to a lack of consistent production. Yeah, now, look. The Devils, and, there was a great clip that was put up yesterday on our Instagram page about them on their streak. It's not going to continue forever. Like, if you're a Devil fan, you're not going to go 71-0 here the rest of the way. Eventually, they'll lose. And it could be tonight in Montreal because Montreal's not playing bad. But the Devils will eventually come back to earth. I mean, I don't think if you're a Ranger fan, you're sitting here saying to yourself, wow, with everything I'm seeing, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. No, they probably still will. They will. But you would like to see them be more consistent. And Igor Shesterkin the other day in the first period, right? I told you they were outshot 17-3. You ready for a math question?
Yeah, sure.
If Igor Shesterkin faces 17 shots in the first period and lets in 0 goals, how many saves did he have in the first period?
17.
17?
Yeah.
Right. That's you know what? You're lucky you had Igor Shesterkin playing on his A game the other night because he was good. So we will see here what happens with them. Again, they'll go out west. We will cover those games for you next week. We'll recap them as well. So we are going to shift gears here. We're going to go to football a little earlier today than we normally would here on the show. And we're going to bring in, let's see, I can see her in the virtual waiting room. Hold on, we'll give her a second there to get set up. We're going to bring in from, let's talk about the Giants before we bring her in.
Okay.
You before, and we've talked about this. Now, I think I should say this.
Go ahead,
you
sir.
made a bet because you're proud of this.
Yes.
Now, who knows if it's going to work? About a month and a half ago, you made this weird
week two of the regular season. I made this bet.
You made a bet. Was it DraftKings?
Yeah.
Oh, DraftKings.
Yes.
That the Super Bowl matchup, not picking the winner,
Well,
right?
I did that too, but I made a couple of them.
Right.
Go ahead.
Just the Super Bowl matchup was going to be the Buffalo Bills and the New York Giants, to which you
guys call me crazy.
We threw you under the bus because, I mean, it was like a pipe dream. And I'm not sure that it's
pipes are full, baby, ready to blow.
It's possible. So we'll ask our guest. So why don't we bring her in? This is Nikki Gist. How are you, Nikki? Let's see if we can get her on. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
We are good. This is Nikki. You can see her with Channelside Sports and the New York Giants Rush podcast. We'll put up your handle across for those following the video feed. So if you want to follow her on Instagram, you have a lot of good Giants clips up there, a lot of good information. Of course, some of that I'm going to ask you questions about in a minute. So how are you?
I am doing good. You guys are good? Everything's
We
great
we are
and
good.
wonderful over there. And mind your pucking business, which I love the name of the show, by the way. That is genius.
Thank you. It was actually thought like I don't want, I mean, we didn't really, some people will say to us, well, did you hire like creative people to do it? And we just kind of came up with it one day. So I guess, yeah,
Absolutely.
well, I'm glad you like it. All right. So let's go to the Giants here, who you
Okay.
cover,
Yeah.
who now are, I mean, a little more than halfway through the regular season, eclipsing any expectation, I would think a realistic expectation. Let's leave it at that. Because some people will always say, well, my team's going to go 17-0, and they don't. So Brian Dable comes here, right? And we said last year on this show that he was the number one coaching free agent to get if you were a team that needed to hire a coach. If there's one thing Brian Dable has done, and I'm sure there's more than one, what is the one thing he's doing that has made this season what it's been so far?
I think, and let me just preface this and say, I spent all summer at training camp around the team, being in that building. And I noticed it right away when Brian Dable kind of came in and took over. Obviously, the culture changed like that. But he is one of those coaches that he believes in his guys, right? I trust you. Go do what you're going to do. I'm going to trust my defense to make a play. I'm going to trust Daniel Jones. Like, he trusts his guys, and he will. You have those coaches who, this is my system and you're going to fit in my system. Now, Brian Dable just uses what he has, and he really, the respect that he has for his players, I think the biggest thing is a respect. He says it all the time, every time he's at the podium, every interview I've ever watched him do, been there, listened to him on the sidelines. He respects the amount of work that these guys put in for him, and it's a two-way street. So I think, listen, we all know when the team buys into what a coach is selling, that is pretty powerful. So it has just been a culture change from the start. They're holding guys accountable, but the biggest thing is they're trusting them to do their job.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was thinking last night, their roster didn't change a tremendous amount from last year, right? So it's
No,
not like you can
no.
sit here and say, well, they brought in guys and Joe Judge didn't have them last year. No, I mean so that would make sense. The culture shock. So you said you were at training camp, which
Uh-huh.
I know there was a clip of you on Instagram back in the summer, and I gave you credit because I wish I had seen this back then. There's a video of you making a recommendation to people in fantasy football to draft Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
Because if you do fantasy football, which we both do, and again, my team is 2-8, so I wish I had listened to you in particular. But Saquon was kind of like this whole wild card in the draft this year when you were looking at running backs. Could he be Saquon Barkley of old? Could he be Saquon Barkley where he was terrible and you don't want to draft him that high? You had said from being at training camp in this video, draft Saquon Barkley, draft Saquon Barkley, draft Saquon Barkley. And you were
Yes.
right.
Yes.
What was it that you saw about Saquon Barkley that made you believe that?
I saw right away the explosiveness was back, right? And I know he's always that lateral runner, but I was like, you know what? He's cutting up the middle. This offensive line, even in training camp, is starting to create some holes for him, which, I mean, the Giants have struggled with their offensive line for, I don't know what, guys, 8-9 years. I mean, it's been a minute. It's been a long time. And him just saying that, I'm back, I'm ready. We all heard him on that podcast, and he clarified to us that F the noise just meant like himself. He was frustrated with himself, the process. He wanted to get back to the great player that he knew he could be. But it's that eye test sometimes, guys. It's right there in front of you, and you're looking at it and you're going, I'm going, yeah, he's back and then some. So that's why I made that video. And, when you put your picks out there for the whole world to listen, you sure hope that you're right once in a while. And got that one right. So, and he's just having a tremendous season. You could tell. I mean, you could just, he said mentally he was in such a better place this season than he has been, and that he felt happy and healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, I remember him. I have a friend who is a huge Penn State football fan. So I don't follow college football. It's not my thing, but I'll hear about it from him, or I'll kind of quasi follow it because of my friend. And when
Yeah.
Saquon was at Penn State, it was like he just couldn't be stopped.
Yeah.
And now it's like when you see, as you're saying, the way that he's running,
Yeah.
it kind of brings you back there. And it's amazing with the injuries he's had that he can get back to that level. I mean, it's like, so, I mean, it was kind of was a real bold prediction on your part that really worked. So
Yeah, it was
very
bold.
impressive.
I got a lot of I get a lot of flack for a lot of things that I say, and that was one of them. People said, "Oh, I'm crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're looking at." But I don't know. I saw it.
Well,
It was something I had a feeling being around it, and turned out to be right. I know a couple people took my advice. You're welcome, everybody. I hope your fantasy teams are doing well.
Well, next year when we do like our fantasy special, we'll bring you in for like, sleeper picks, particularly
Yes,
maybe with
great.
the Giants. All right. Speaking of next year, question marks going into this season. Is this Daniel Jones' last year here? Will the Giants now in 2023 turn the page and look to get another quarterback? I had said, maybe I'm wrong, but I'll let you decide. I had said going into the year that I can't see any situation that Daniel Jones is the quarterback in 2023, but now I could see where maybe there's a counter argument. Do you think next year, opening day, September 2023, Daniel Jones is under center for the Giants?
Yes, I do. I said back in
Okay.
the summer, I said, now listen, I've been very critical of him, right? Because we just haven't seen it. But I think Brian Dable is a prime example of what good coaching can do for a team, and coaching up your quarterback and getting the right coaches in the right place with the right personnel. Listen, like you said, that roster didn't really change. So it is coaching. I think so. And I had said Daniel Jones is going to play well enough that they'll consider the contract extension. I mean, now listen, I don't think you're throwing a ton of money at him, right? I can't see it. He's not going to command this Deshaun Watson type of money. But I mean, you're looking at it. Why not at this point? Why wouldn't you? And I understand you want your quarterback of the future. No, I don't think he's the quarterback of the future, but he's playing well enough. This team is in playoff push mode. I wouldn't be upset about it. I'll say that. And to see another year with him, with Brian Dable, the Giants will finally have some cap room. I think it's going to be like 63 million. Maybe we can get rid of Kenny Golladay, maybe get some wide receivers for Daniel Jones to actually play with. So I would like to see that for him.
Now, did I see in a clip of you that you are not a Kenny Golladay fan, if I'm not mistaken?
Oh,
right?
no, I am not.
Right. Okay.
I am not.
I thought so. So the Giants now are 7-2, right? They've already hit the over under for them for total wins was. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Yes. I was at the game and he dropped one pass and the whole stadium booed.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you see something like that, it's time to go, right? I mean, it's just time to cut your losses. So the Giants are 7-2. They have already here in mid-November hit their over/under, if you're into betting, for what it was for the season, which was 7. Although some places were 6.5. So if you got them at 6.5, you can already sit back and chill. You've already won. Looking at their schedule ahead, they have the Lions at home this week. You never take an opponent for granted, but it's definitely a winnable game, right? The Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day is a fascinating game because the NFL got it right that the year that they put the Giants and Cowboys on Thanksgiving is going to be it's a phenomenal game. And the Cowboys, I feel like in recent years on Thanksgiving do not play well at home. I feel like I've seen them lose to the Commanders a couple times when the Commanders weren't good. So that's a winnable game. You then have the Commanders coming in at home. That's winnable. The Eagles game on December 11th now is going to be a real hot ticket around here, right?
Yeah.
Especially after last night. Then they play the Commanders again, and they end with the Vikings, Colts, and Eagles. So, I mean, the Giants could realistically end up with 11 wins, right? 11 or 12 wins and get in.
Yeah, they could. I actually had them at 9 wins. So maybe that'll be another prediction that's about to come true, to which I got called crazy for as well. But I could see it, right? Detroit, yes, I think that's winnable. I'll have them down to win that game. The Thanksgiving game, I mean, I joke that, not even a joke. Listen, I host Thanksgiving, so that's stressful enough. Now you got to add this Cowboys Giants dynamic. My brother's a Cowboys fan. I mean, it's messy. My sister's an Eagles fan, so it's just messy. Yeah, they could win that game. They could win that game. I know they lost to Dallas in the beginning of the season, but this is a different team. And I always feel like those first 4 games of the season are like preseason light, right? Like it's just bad football until about like week 6, 7, 8. So I think it's winnable. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're sitting at 10 wins, 11 wins. No, not at all.
Okay, so here's the $1 million question. Based on that, we've run through the schedule a little bit. How
Uh-huh.
far? Let's look into the crystal ball here.
Okay.
How does the season end for this team, and where does it end? What is it? Is it a round in the playoffs? Do they not make the playoffs? Where do you, looking at the schedule, where do you think the season goes?
Yeah, I think the NFC East will send 3. I think they will make the playoffs. But I feel like if they're getting that wild card, they probably might get bounced in the first round or so. So I don't think they make it too far in the postseason, but I do think they make the playoffs.
Now, if they make the playoffs, though, right, and
Mhm.
let's say they lose their first round game, because it probably would be a road game, right? If you
Mhm.
have 3 teams from the NFC East coming, and if they're not going to win the division, it's a road game.
Right.
So if they're on the road and they lose a wild card game, isn't it a successful season, right? I mean, you want to win the Super Bowl, I get it, but knowing where you were back in August and the expectation of what the last few years have, wouldn't that be a successful season in your eyes, Nikki?
Yes. Oh, that's a tremendous season. This team won 4 games last year, everybody. 4 games total. So the fact that, this team is 7-2, I mean, we haven't done that since I think '08. No, I mean, that's tremendous. Even if even if they don't make the playoffs, my whole thing was like, let's see improvement, right? We have a new coaching regime a new GM. I just kind of wanted to see improvement. So far, my expectations have been exceeded. Now I set the bar pretty low based on the past few years, but yeah, if they make the playoffs, I mean, Brian Dable, coach of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Serrani losing last night in Philly may have helped get a little more votes towards the Brian Dable camp,
Yes.
which would be good. So I said a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, when we actually first started the podcast, that I was not a Daniel Jones fan, and I took a lot of heat from people for saying it for whatever reason. People are entitled to their own opinion, but because of that, I know we have a lot of Giants fans that listen to our show. So tell us a little bit about your Giants Rush podcast, and we'll try and promote that. But tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so Giants Rush, we are a Giants centric show. So it's every Tuesday, 8 o'clock. It's fantastic. We really break it down. We kind of start the show with maybe 10 things you didn't know, throw some stats at you. And then, we give out game balls and it is all the Giants fans come in. We really dive deep into it if that's your thing. We just have a blast. We interview some great people, Lawrence Tynes, Kurt Warner. So we get a lot of ex-Giants. We get a lot of great, Giants legends on the show. So it's awesome. And I will be doing my own show as an extension of Rush. So it's going to be Monday nights at 6 o'clock, and we're going to get all the fans in, right? It's going to be a fan-based show. It doesn't have to be all Giants, but it will be an extension of us. So look for that. That will start next week. So heavy promo on that coming. But yeah, Rush is a fantastic show. If you are a Giants fan, you want to dive deep into it, the X's and O's, make sure you join us Tuesdays at 8 o'clock on YouTube.
Very cool. And you can get links to those shows that she mentioned at her Instagram handle, which you can see on the screen right now. And again, I encourage you to check out that page, because what you do really well that I like is the short clips that you put. They're not, 20-minute long, and they're super, super informative, like the Saquon Barkley, draft him in your fantasy.
Yeah.
Kenny Galladay. Like, there's just a lot of good stuff. If you are a Giants fan, and I know you guys listen to the show I'm telling you right now, check out her page, follow the podcast, and check her out. We will have you back on, Nikki, maybe hopefully towards the end of the season. We'll see if
Yeah.
your prediction was right.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you for joining us. That is Nikki Gist, and she is from Channel Side Sports, as well as NY Giants Rush podcast.
Awesome. The one thing I'm a little disappointed, you guys, you grazed over it.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles lost last night.
Well, it's
the dirty Eagles. Those filthy animal birds.
Can I
that
say
fly
something?
in the sky? Not an American eagle. These are dirty eagles.
I want to say something, and I've said this before.
Yes.
You and I, because it's going to look like I'm lying, but this is the dead honest truth.
Yes.
We do not go through the topics that much. I literally, the next thing we're going into, I have on my screen, it
It's
says,
dirty
nope,
Eagles.
it's called the Philadelphia Frauds.
Oh,
you ready?
Bada boom.
And our executive producer, Pat, who is
Yes.
dressed like he's going to a wedding, is going to love this
Yes.
segment over there in the corner today. All right. So Philadelphia has won 8 games, right? They
Yeah.
lost last night. So they lost to the Commanders at home.
Yeah.
And I actually watched the game. I normally wouldn't, but there really wasn't anything else on.
Mhm.
So I did watch most of the game last night. And I mean, they kind of made a run at the end, but Washington was the better team. But here's my point. They've won 8 games. You
Mhm.
ready? Let's run through the 8 games
Yeah.
that the Eagles have won
Yeah.
and tell me if something seems a little bit off.
All right.
Week 1, you beat the worst defense probably in NFL history, the Detroit Lions, by 3. Okay?
By
Week-
3?
By 3, 38-35. And the only
Right.
reason I know that score is if you remember week 1 picks I had the Lions plus 4, and I barely hit it. So week 1, you beat the Lions by 3.
Yeah.
Week 2,
Yeah.
now this is their only quality win, but there's a caveat.
Okay.
They beat the Vikings in primetime Monday Night Football,
Yeah.
to which Paul Farrington has said, because he is the world's biggest Vikings fan,
Yeah.
you never take the Vikings on Monday Night Football on the road. They're terrible. So they beat a good team. That's a quality win, but however, there's like a little asterisk or
All
something
right.
that draws
All
our attention, okay?
All right.
Week 3, they beat the Commanders with Carson Wentz. Week 4, they beat the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence. Week 5, they beat the Arizona Cardinals that did not have Hopkins.
Well, they're still on a like their season's not that great this year.
Yeah, and they almost lost that game. Matter of fact, I remember watching bonus coverage of that game because not only did they not have DeAndre Hopkins, Arizona almost tied it up on a field goal that they should have hit and missed it. They won that. Then they beat the Cowboys at home with Cooper Rush as the quarterback. And if you remember in that Sunday night game, Philadelphia came out like manhandled them in the first half, and then the second half was completely different, and they barely held on to win. Then for their 6th win, they beat the Steelers, who are awful. The Steelers are bottom 3 in the league, maybe even worse, right?
Okay.
Then Thursday Night Football, they go on the road and struggled versus a Texans team who at the time was 1-7.
They almost
They
lost that game.
right?
Yeah.
So those are their 8 wins, and then last night they lose as an 11-point favorite at home.
So I actually tweeted this last night with the play of Heineke kneeling. The Eagles are back. These are the Eagles I know and love.
Now, the Eagles schedule, though. Hold on.
The Eagles I know and love.
I want to. So my kids think it's funny. They know that if like I'm watching football on Sundays, that I hate the Eagles, and I'll say that out here.
Yeah.
So, and matter of fact, I know one person that listens to this show that likes the Eagles because he's made comments to me about me saying stuff. But I'm going to be honest with you. The Eagles play this week. They play at Indianapolis. Now, the Indianapolis situation is, you can't even evaluate it right now because of Jeff Saturday. Like, what is going on? The Eagles should win. The Eagles are a better team, but would you turn around and be shocked after what I just told you if the Colts won? No.
I think this loss was the worst thing for them, and they're going to go on a huge losing streak. They're going to be 8-8.
So after that, they have the Packers at home next week, Thanksgiving weekend on Sunday Night Football.
Packers beat the Cowboys.
They did. I don't know who wins that game. We'll get into that next week. But then they have the Titans coming in, and the game is going to mean something for Tennessee because Tennessee is right in the middle of this AFC South that nobody wants to win the division, right? So it's going to be a game that they need to win. They come to MetLife Stadium against the Giants at December 11th. And I will say something because I've said this before that I sell tickets. You know, I'm a Rangers season ticket holder, Knicks season ticket holder. I'll go sometimes, but I sell tickets. So I know a little bit about the secondary market. If the Eagles and the Giants keep the pace up that they're at in the next 2 weeks, that game, ticket prices for that game, December 11th, are going to be through the roof.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be nuts. Cause you remember, if you're an Eagle fan, it's not like you're playing, the Rams across the country. You drive up the turnpike 75 minutes.
Yeah.
So the Eagles come here, the Giants, that's not a gimme game for the Eagles at all. The Eagles go to Chicago, and I'll warn you about the Chicago game for one reason. Justin Fields has all of a sudden out there found his game. I mean, he's become a different player. I had him in fantasy in the beginning of the year, and he was awful. And now he's like exactly why I drafted him, but I don't have him anymore. So that's not necessarily an easy game. They go on Christmas Eve, they play the Cowboys, and then they end with the Saints, which probably is a win, and then they end with the Giants at home. So if you're the Eagles, I don't know.
You're exposed.
I mean, I don't want to say we exposed. Did we expose them, Pat? I mean,
they've been Exposed.
But now look, the one thing I'm going to say is you do not control who you play. So it's not the Eagles' fault if I were going to say that their strength of schedule has been really easy. It's not the Eagles' fault, right? They didn't pick these opponents. Good for them. It worked out.
Yeah.
But I'm just not buying the hype. And the NFC as a whole, right, is completely wide open. We were talking about this here before we went live, that now in the NFC, you have the Eagles and the Giants and the Cowboys in the East, right? I don't know that one team there is light years better than the other two. They're probably not. In the NFC West, you have the Seahawks at 6-4. I'm not buying them at all in Geno Smith and Pete Carroll. The NFC North, I mean, the Vikings were impressive. They should have lost the other day if Josh Allen could kneel the ball correctly on the 1 yard line. But, the Vikings probably right now are the cream of the crop in the NFC, but they're beatable too. If I'm winning, and again, Paul Farrington, I'm not trying to insult you here, my man, but I'm not sure that, like, if I was matched up in the NFC Championship game versus Minnesota, it would be like as fearful as it was if I was playing the Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills trying to advance to the Super Bowl. And the NFC South is a mess also. The Buccaneers lead that division at 5-5. That's crazy. I don't know.
Going to the Super Bowl, baby.
I'll tell you. Well, you've got a chance of the Giants. Now, in the AFC, before we shift to our weekly picks here, in the AFC, I looked at this and I did a double take when I saw it yesterday morning because someone posted a graphic about it. The Miami Dolphins are alone in first place in the AFC East at 7-3.
Just by one game.
Well, one game, right. And they haven't had their bye yet, and the Jets are 6-3. So if the Jets and Bills win this week, because I believe the Dolphins are on bye this week, or they have to be on bye in the next couple weeks. So if the Jets and Bills win, and the Bills will win because they're playing Cleveland, the Jets probably won't because they're in Foxborough, then they're all tied. But we all thought, and I said this with Paul over the summer, that the Bills would run away with this division. How in week 11? That they're not in first place in their own division is a little concerning. The Chiefs at 7-2 will end up winning that division. The Broncos and the Raiders are both awful. I don't know who to be more just less impressed with. I don't know if it's Russell Wilson and the Broncos or if it's just Josh McDaniels as a whole as an awful coach in Las Vegas. Like, that division is going to Kansas City. They're going to win there. The AFC North is still kind of interesting. You have the Ravens at 6-3, the Bengals at 5-4. Probably the Ravens end up winning that division. They'll win this week. The Ravens are home versus Carolina. That's actually one of the picks coming up in a couple minutes. And then the AFC South, like I said, nobody wants to win the division. The Titans have not been that good. They're 6-3, but they're going to end up winning the division because in second place you have the Colts. Jeff Saturday's Colts at 4-5-1. Maybe there's hope. You know what the Jeff Saturday thing should start rumors about?
What?
If you can get plucked, right, from a media gig and just basically climb the entire coaching ladder overnight, why can't somebody hire you to coach?
True. Yeah. He had no coaching experience, right? At all.
No. I don't want to get into politics because it's not what I do. And I know people got upset about, like, he cut certain people in line, and I don't even know the names that they mentioned. But look, the guy played there forever. He's an NFL analyst. It's not like they pulled a guy who was selling lemonade at the corner of 53rd and Broadway.
That'd make a good movie, though.
It would. But, people are really upset about it. It's not like they pulled someone who doesn't know a thing about football. And he obviously has a relationship with Jim Irsay, who's the owner of the Colts. I didn't have a problem with it. And it is about who you know. The other thing that Jim Irsay said last week when they hired him, when he got asked about, how did you let this guy cut the line? It's an 8 game. He's an interim head coach. He didn't get the job full time. And if I would almost in some ways want to lose and maybe try and get Bryce Young from Alabama, although winning at the Raiders didn't help that cause. But so speaking of the Bryce Young watch, right now, the number 1 pick in the league would belong to, if I am not mistaken, it's going to be Houston. Yes, Houston Texans would get Bryce Young. So for them, it's like they got rid of Deshaun Watson, and here comes the next coming of maybe Deshaun Watson.
All right, so is he that good?
I don't think he is, actually, me personally, but do not use me to evaluate NFL quarterbacks. I don't think he's that good.
Oh, sorry, Bryce.
But then again, we talk about it here with the Rangers. Alexi Lafreniere came here as the next coming of Moses. what has happened? He's still on the third line. All right, week picks. So week 10 picks. We were 7-2 last week. Going into it, and I told you I was really like aggravated because we lost on a fluke thing in the fourth quarter. We recovered last week with a really good week. We had the Bucks -1 versus the Seahawks. They won the game pretty easily in London. Seahawks made a little bit of a run there towards the end, but the Bucks held on. We had the Titans -2 versus the Broncos. That line actually surprisingly moved to like -3 at game time, but they still won the game by 7. We had the Chiefs -9.5 at home versus the Jaguars. They won the game by 10. So when I got annoyed that like you lose the close ones, sometimes we see it always breaks even. It's gambling, right? If you don't know this by now. So we had the Chiefs -9.5. We won that. We won the Chargers +7. They were +6. They lost by 6. So we got lucky there. Nice. And then we were off. Actually, you can have every right to be annoyed at me. We were wrong with the Texans +7 at the Giants. Although it was close. They lost by 6, right? 21. Wait. Yeah. No. 24-16. They lost by 8. 10? No. Yeah. No, I was close, but we lost. Anyway, 4 winning games. So we were 4-1 last week. We made our record for the season 8 winning weeks and 2 losing weeks.
Yeah, buddy.
I mean, if you're not paying attention, if you don't like money, right, then don't pay attention to us. But if you like money in your life, we literally have handed you money 8 out of 10 weeks.
Yeah. Free money, man.
But a word of warning. I looked at the lines for week 11, and I know I've said this before. I was like, oh, man, do I not like any of these? but we'll see. So these are your week 11 picks for the Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast. I like the Texans +2.5 at home versus Washington. Now, I've got to check real quick here because the line may have moved after last night. I did this last night before they won on Monday Night Football.
You don't want to rethink this game?
I'm not going to rethink it. I'm going to give you the updated line. They're +3.5, so it hasn't moved. So I'm taking the Texans +3.5 at home. This could be a very easy letdown game for the Commanders. You just came off an emotional win on the road. The Texans have not been as bad. I'm covered with a field goal and a point. I'm taking the Texans +3.5 at home versus Washington. I like the Vikings +1.5 at home versus Dallas. I was a little confused by this line that the Vikings have a better record, a better team, and are at home and are getting 1.5 at Dallas. To me, it's a pick 'em at worst. I'm taking the home team and I'm getting a point. I'm taking the Vikings +1.5 at home versus Dallas. I'm taking the Raiders +2.5 at Denver at some point. Okay. Mm-hmm. At some point, Vegas has to win and do something impressive. Maybe going home to Denver motivates Josh McDaniels. I don't know. At some point, it has to go well. Derek Carr was like emotionally distraught in the press conference the other day. If it doesn't happen here versus a Denver team that is terrible, it's never going to happen, and I'm getting 2.5 points. I'm taking the Raiders +2.5 at Denver. I am taking the Colts at home +7.5 versus Philly. The Colts won on the road. Jeff Saturday's home debut. Philly showed last night. The Philly frauds, as we call them now today, a little bit exposed. I'm taking the Colts +7.5. That is a lot of points for a home team. Give me them 7.5. The last game, I had to pick a 5th game, and I don't love this, but I did it anyway. I'm taking Carolina +11.5 on the road at Baltimore. Baltimore is the far superior team. They're also coming off of a bye, which makes me think that Lamar Jackson may just go off and put up a 50 spot and win by 40. But 11.5 is a lot of points. Mm-hmm. I'm taking Carolina +11.5 in Baltimore. So to recap, I'm taking the Texans +3.5 at home versus Washington. I'm taking the Vikings +1.5 at home versus Dallas. I'm taking the Raiders +2.5 on the road in Denver. The Colts +7.5 at home versus Philly in Jeff Saturday's home debut. And the Carolina Panthers on the road in Baltimore +11.5.
Baker Mayfield's making his starting debut.
Oh, in Carolina?
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps my cause or hurts it. I'm not really sure. What do you think? I'm not sure.
I don't know. They need something.
It's been a weird, you know what, the NFL, and I think as a fan, if you're a fan of the NFL, which really, I mean, who isn't? I think you like this. This is a year so far that 10 weeks in, there's not really a clear-cut Super Bowl favorite, which makes it really interesting. And some of these division races, which are not impressive, like the NFC West 6-4, Tampa Bay's 5-5 leading division. What ends up coming out of this is it makes for a lot of meaningful games in December, right? Because you can be 6-4, but you're one game out of winning the division, and it makes for meaningful games,
Yeah.
which is really, as a football fan, what you want.
Yeah, you want to have a chance. You want to root for something, not just like give up after week 4.
Yes. Let's take, because we have to do the local game.
Yes.
The Giants and the Jets, actually, the line is similar. The Giants -3 at home versus Detroit.
I'm taking the Giants.
I'm taking the Giants, and I went the other way last week. 3's not a lot, and Detroit is so just Jekyll and Hyde. Some weeks they look good, and they looked good last week in Chicago. I'm going to take the Giants -3 in actually at MetLife. The Jets. This is hard. You know what's hard about this? I want to drink the Kool-Aid. I do.
Okay.
Right? But the Jets are playing a team that they haven't beaten in like 7 years in the Patriots.
But they didn't show up last time, 2 weeks ago. They didn't show up. I think they regret their showing because they beat the Bills the week after. So I think there's a little juice that they drank, and now it's like, yo, we can beat the Bills.
+3.
We can destroy the Patriots.
You're
like,
getting 3.
We got to get out of our own way.
So you're taking the Jets +3?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
You're gonna manhandle them.
You know what? And the line, you can see the line is moving because the -3 is -115. So the line is moving towards the Patriots already. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to take the Jets at some point, right? Yeah, they have to beat the Patriots, and the Patriots are not good.
Yeah.
And the Jets are coming off a bye. I don't know. I could be wrong easily on this.
The line's moving towards more like
Patriots
+4.
No, it would be -3.5, shifting to -3.5.
So you should wait if you want to pick.
If you wanted to, yes. But there's no guarantee the line moves, right? I mean, it could also stop and not move. Sure. But right now the line is trending towards the Patriots, and the over/under in that game. I don't do over/unders ever. Is very low. As a matter of fact, it is the lowest over/under game in the league next week, and that they are at 38.5. That is crazy for an over/under. For the entire game, over 38.5. So basically what they're saying is they are expecting the Patriots to win 20-17, right? If you close to 30 points and 38 points and win by 3. So Vegas is saying the Patriots are a better team. But if Vegas is saying it's 2017, you know it's close, right? So that's going to do it.
Anybody's game.
We'll see. That's a wrap. This was a very, and I feel bad a little bit, this was a very football-heavy show for the middle of hockey season. But we will get back to hockey next week. We thank Nikki Gist from coming on from Channelside Sports. As we mentioned, check her out. Check out the Bamboozle Project. Get your winter gear. Use your 25% promo coupon. It basically makes the shipping free, which isn't even that expensive to begin with, but it makes your shipping free. And you can send us your questions at any time at mypbshow@gmail.com. Anything else, sir?
Instagram.
Yes.
Business.
At Mind Your Bucking Business. You can DM us. You can send us your questions. We do read them, and we do get to them. And actually, you know what we probably will do? Next week, maybe we will put it up over the weekend. Maybe we'll do a Q&A. We've done it before where we allow people to submit their questions via Instagram, and we'll take them on the show. We'll probably do that next week. Let's plan to do that. So if you have some questions, we'll give you the opportunity next week to ask them. That is a wrap. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to you next week.